China's high-speed railway manufacturing story only really started about a decade ago, mostly building trains based on designs from other countries like Germany and Japan. But in the last few years, things have changed. China hasn't just caught up, it started building some of the fastest, most advanced and best-looking trains anywhere in the world. And now, for the first time ever, that technology has arrived here in Europe. This is the controversial new Panda train for Austria's Westbahn. It's the fastest Chinese-built train in Europe so far, and China's first entry into the European high-speed railway market. But it certainly wasn't a smooth process. So join me in this video as we take a ride on board these divisive new trains. Hello, here from Wien Westbahnhof, where we'll be catching the brand new CRRC double-decker trains for Westbahn. These are some of the first high-speed trains in Europe built by Chinese manufacturer CRRC, and I'm really excited to see what they're like. So let's sit inside the station and try out these new trains. Wien Westbahnhof used to be one of the most important stations serving Austria's capital, but with the full opening of the new Vienna main station or Hauptbahnhof by 2015, it lost much of its historic train traffic. Despite the lesser importance of the station these days, it still maintains a good selection of shops and services, and it's also connected to the adjacent shopping mall with even more options. On the first floor of the station, you'll find a large food court, and believe me when I say you definitely won't go hungry here. The station is primarily served by two different train operators, with Austria's national railway company ÖBB mostly providing a few local and regional services out of here. But a more recent development is that select long-distance trains run by ÖBB in partnership with other railways now continue onwards from the new Hauptbahnhof to Westbahnhof, mostly due to limited capacity to store trains at the new station. For instance, this Czech Vectron locomotive is now heading off to Krakow in Poland via the Czech Republic. However, today we'll be traveling on Westbahn, a private rail operator that entered the Austrian rail market in 2011. From Westbahnhof they compete against state-run ÖBB on the key western mainline corridor out of Vienna, serving major cities like Linz, Salzburg and even extending some services into Germany. While most of their services are operated using a fleet of 15 Stadler KISS trains, the recent addition of 4 new trains from China has allowed them to increase frequencies, now running every 30 minutes throughout the day from Westbahnhof to various destinations west. So, these new trains for Westbahn are of course built in China by Chinese manufacturer CRRC, and that has not been without controversy. Of course, there's quite a bit of, I guess you can call it anti-Chinese sentiment, or at least concerns over Chinese trains in Europe from like a safety perspective and stuff like that, and spying perspective. I don't want to get into the politics around that, but I was in China a couple of weeks ago and I tried some high-speed trains there and I thought they were excellent. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these trains are like from a passenger perspective today. And here comes the new kid on the block, operating an inbound service from Salzburg with a delay of around 20 minutes. This is the Westbahn Panda, built by CRRC Suzhou, and it's capable of 200 km per hour. And before any of you trigger-happy high-speed rail gatekeepers rush to my comments to tell me, this isn't a real high-speed train, in China they wouldn't call it that, blah blah blah. Let's just clear one thing up. Not only does China itself have its lowest tier of high-speed trains start at 200 km per hour, but here in Europe, both the EU and the International Union of Railways defines high-speed rail as starting at 200 km per hour on upgraded lines like Austria's Westbahn. So yeah, I'm sticking with their definitions. Anyway, officially Westbahn have given them the nickname Panda because they are large and powerful, but I also can't help to think it's because they look a little clumsy. Right, let's finally head on board and check out this new train. Today, I'll be traveling in first class, which is located at the rear of the train on the upper deck. And wow, my first impressions are that this basically looks like Westbahn just copy-pasted the interior from their Stadler Kiss trains. Right, here we are at my seat for today's journey, one of the few solo seats by the window. There's actually only really one of these seats, as most others are around a table and the two other solo seats are very far from the window. First impressions, it feels and looks just like their Stadler Kiss trains, which I think is a good thing. That's a good thing, right? Just before departure, one of the staff members came around with the complimentary service in first class on board Westbahn, which consists of a small towel, as well as a cookie and a bottle of water. And a couple of moments later, we depart Wien Westbahnhof a minute behind schedule at 12:09. And just a few moments later, we call at Wien Hütteldorf, offering a convenient connection from the metro line U4 onto Westbahn's trains. And now, as we head into this tunnel, taking us on to Austria's new Western Main Line, let's take a closer look at the route map for today's journey. We are on board Westbahn train 950, which is one of their short turns only travelling as far as Wels, with our train covering the distance of 207 km in 1 hour and 32 minutes, giving the train an average speed of 136 km per hour. We emerge from the tunnel, now travelling along Austria's new Western Main Line. This is one of just 2 high-speed railway lines in the country that allows for speeds of up to 250 km per hour. And as our Panda accelerates up towards its top speed of 200 km per hour, I have to say I noticed the ride quality was surprisingly poor, with lots of shaking and vibrating. It is definitely noticeably worse than the Westbahn Stadler Kisses when they travel over the same stretch of line. But one thing that is pretty good is that they have retained the same seats as on board the Kisses, which I found pretty good last time. The seats themselves feature this stylish dark leather-like material with stitching in Westbahn's brand colors, with great ergonomic shaping that works very well with the firmer padding. I found it very comfy. Below the padded armrest is where you'll find the seat's USB-C port as well as regular power outlet. Down here is also where you'll find the control for the seat's reading light. The seat also features a large and sturdy tray table, as well as pretty good legroom and a small storage pocket. A little bit of recline is also offered, giving the seat a more comfortable relaxation position. While there's definitely better first class seats out there, these are perfectly fine. We are now slowing down for our first stop here at St. Pölten Hauptbahnhof. It's a city home to around 60,000 people, and it's probably best known for its architecture and how it blends many of its historic Baroque buildings in with more modern contemporary design. And as we depart from here, I must admit I thought that these trains were quite noisy. The train has a quite sharp and distinctive electronic whine which can really be heard at certain speeds. It reminds me a bit of the Dutch ICNG in that regard. Right, and as we now speed towards Amstetten, let's take a closer look around the train's interior. Below first class, both physically and in terms of class, is second plus comfort, which offers the same seats as in regular second class but with more legroom. Westbahn also offers great opportunities to bring your bike on board, with up to 18 spaces on board these double-decker trains. Just like with many Stadler models, the Panda also has a long corridor between certain carriages where a lot of the train's electronic equipment is housed. And just like on board Westbahn's existing double-decker trains, there's still 4 small self-service cafe areas. In the cafe area, you'll usually find a warm drinks machine as well as a vending machine with a selection of mostly drinks and a few snacks. The rest of the train is mostly made up of standard class, which features seats mostly in an airline-style layout. These seats are basically the same as you'll find in first class, just a little tighter thanks to the 2+2 layout and less legroom. So yeah, Westbahn for sure basically just copy-pasted their existing Stadler-Kiss interior onto these trains, which was not a bad idea. It's just remarkable how similar they actually are. The train does also have a dedicated accessibility carriage including a large PIM toilet, but as this was full of kids today, I did not film it. So let's check out the regular toilet instead. This was looking pretty clean and in good working order. So it gets a thumbs up from me as there was nothing wrong with it. Back at my seat, we are now speeding through snow-covered Austria as I took this trip back in January. We'll now arrive at our third intermediate stop, which is Amstetten. It's a popular commuter city that really benefits from the fast links along Austria's Westbahn to both Vienna and to our next stop Linz, which is Austria's third largest city. Right, a few other things I should mention about these trains is that, like on every other double-decker train, the luggage situation is mostly reliant on racks, as either the overhead rack doesn't exist at all, and when they do exist, they are very small. The train is also equipped with free, easy-to-use Wi-Fi, which was actually pretty fast. We are now arriving at our penultimate stop at Linz Hauptbahnhof, one of the busiest stations on the entire Westbahn, serving this major city. And it's also where most of the train's passengers got off. But we will continue the one stop further to Wels. Overall, it's a fine train. It's not quite as smooth as a Stadler-Kiss, and it's also quite loud in comparison, so in many ways it feels like a cheaper version of it, so I guess you could describe this train as a Stadler-Kiss from Wish, which is pretty much what it is. And I think that's exactly what Westbahn wanted. They asked the rolling stock market back in 2019, who can build us something like our Stadler-Kiss trains we already have, but cheaper and faster. And CRRC essentially did just that. Although in the end not any faster, as the trains entered service around 4 years late, due to a mix of COVID, technical issues as well as regulatory hurdles. It's just a shame that these Westbahn trains now follow the same pattern like the 2 other Chinese passenger trains in Europe, with their main competitive advantage being cost, because it clearly shows in the overall quality and passenger experience. But maybe the new Serbian trains will change that, as they are being built at the same factory that manufactures some of China's very nice high-speed trains like the CR300. And one thing before we pull into Wels: tickets. I was traveling on an Interrail, so I paid the fixed seat upgrade fee of 26 euros to first class. Regular tickets vary based on demand and time of booking, but start from as little as 5 euros in standard class. In the end, our train pulls into Wels Hauptbahnhof 2 minutes behind schedule after what's been another comfortable journey with Westbahn. Their trains remain comfy and affordable, offering a great alternative to ÖBB's railjet service. Thank you so much for joining me in this video today. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post a new video every Sunday. And if you want to give the channel a little extra support, consider becoming a member, where just a couple of euros every month gets you early access to all my videos as well as exclusive travel updates. To continue your journey, why not watch my video on Austria's updated railjet train, which unfortunately was a bit disappointing. Thanks for watching.